AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need. All about the birds, all birds, all the time.
Oh, I was getting down in the intro. Woo!
You got to love the intro. You can't hate on it too much.
It's catchy. It is catchy.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about. So AAT Birds Weekly Report, we are not live. We are recording this episode of the Eagles quarter century team.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun episode because it just breaks down basically the last 25 years of Eagles football, which by far the most successful 25 years of Eagles football.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that they've done. So it's going to be tough to pick this team offense and defense, but I feel like it's a fun little, type of
exercise.
See,
Yeah.
I
think it's all good, man. Technical difficulties today. And the fun part about quarter century team, like you said, it's the winningest stretch of football we've had, but it's also when a lot of our age group and probably our listeners cut their teeth on the Eagles, right? It's like we were baptized in the Andy Reid era, most of us. Some of us prior to that, some of us were unfortunately baptized in the Rich Kotite era and the Buddy Ryan era, showing our age here. But like when we were really, really into it was when Andy Reid and that 2000 onward teams were really taking off. So this will be a fun one.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who we put where too. We're going to discuss this, talk about it, to see kind of, our feelings on both sides. We're going to disagree on some of this stuff, but I want to start off here with the quarterback position.
Well,
so
let's preface this for the listeners real quick on the format that we're doing for the team, just so we understand. This is not just anyone, right? This is almost like an all-pro team, right? We're going to pick one at each position for the most part.
Yeah.
And we're going to pick the starting 11 for the offense, starting 11 for the defense. We might even throw some honorable mentions in there, I think, but. We're probably going to go with, I'd say a quarterback, a running back, got to throw a fullback in there for our old school listeners. 2 wide receivers?
I think we should do 3 receivers because it'll be 12 offense, 11 defense because you'll throw a fullback. You at least have the fullback in there. Tight end, of course, tackle, guard, center, guard, set.
Yeah, starting 5 offensive line. Yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, the defense. For me, I'm thinking defense, you go 4-3, unless you want to do 4-2-5.
We were predominantly 4-3 throughout that time. I think
you could have 12 offense with the fullback and then 12 defense with the slot corner.
Nickel. Yeah.
Or a third corner. You could just do it. It doesn't have to be a slot corner, but a third corner. I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay. All right.
So again, you hit it at all angles there.
Oh man, that's
of course. We have the specialists. You have the kicker, the punter, the long snapper, and then we do a returner.
That's going to be tough too. All right, let's do this.
All right, quarterback. So as you look at the last 25 years, of course you have, Donovan McNabb, Jalen Hurts, Nick Foles, Mike Vick, Carson Wentz. Those are basically the quarterbacks you're looking at there. To me,
no Jeff Garcia, Kevin Cobb. All right, okay.
So funny. I did see I was looking at old Eagles highlights or whatever, and I had to stumble upon the 2005 Seattle Seahawks Eagles game. That was an absolute atrocity. The funny thing is the beginning, the intros, instead of Mike McMahon, is like Michael McMahon. I said, my goodness, I totally. That is a quarterback that almost made you want to stop being an Eagles
Dude,
fan.
I thought about it. I really did. I questioned whether or not professional football was for me when he was quarterback.
It was bad.
That was tough, man.
Really bad.
Luckily, when I worked for the Eagles, it was in 2006, so that was the Jeff Garcia year. So I didn't have to put up with the Michael McMahon era.
But when you look at quarterback, I know to me it's between Donovan and Jalen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And prior to this year, I probably would have said Foles has to be in that conversation because he was in the ring. But now Jalen has started now for 5 years?
Going
on 5 years. Going on his 5th year, and now he has a Super Bowl. So I think it's fair.
Trying to think here. Like, I know Donovan's accomplished a lot with his tenure. He's had longer tenure for them. Has some of the records here, what he did, the achievements. But I think when it comes down to it, unfortunately, I think you have some recency bias here. I think it's got to be Jalen.
Well, it's not even recency bias. It's who got us over the hump and who was the Super Bowl MVP. Like the amount of shit that Jalen has gotten from this, specifically the media, not necessarily the fan base anymore. I think the fan base has just kind of come to grips with it, and we're all in. But like the media in and outside of Philadelphia is ridiculously unfair to Jalen. And the dude's a winner, man. Like he's a winner. He's got control of that locker room. The organization loves him. The stuff that came out from his agent about not wanting to screw the team with his contract, like he's just, to me, he's the best on and off the field quarterback that we've had. Like never meet your heroes. You always hear that. Like, I wish I didn't know anything about McNabb and like all the off the field DUI stuff and some of the shit talking that he had about the fan base and the city itself afterwards was disheartening. Accomplished a lot. I love him. Like he gave me some of the best years of football in my life, but Jalen did it. Jalen was the MVP. Jalen did it. He's like the perfect Philadelphia quarterback, that underdog. Yeah. Like, I don't care what you say. I'm just going to win. So to me, I think it's hands down Jalen Hurts.
And I think it's tough too with the whole McNabb thing. I think really for me, it's like it came to a point where he had to be the focal point guy. Couldn't let a guy like T.O. take the shadow away, like or just take the reins and be the guy and be the star. He wanted to be the star, and I think too a lot of the fact of it was he was so immensely talented, but the fact of every year trying to get better and better, it just maybe it fell off. Maybe it just he went more on talent than he should have. But when you hear Jalen talk, it's about getting better day in and day out. Like, I'm not as good as I can be or I want to be. And it's always that next step, that next thing. And I think that's key when you have a quarterback and a leader. And that's what it's all about when you're the quarterback. You're the leader of that team. And listen, Jalen Hurts may not be the biggest star in terms of on his team when you look at some of the other players, but I don't really think that matters until they get the win. Like, it's about winning football games. And I think
let's also not act like McNabb didn't have a star-studded team either, man. Like, maybe not at receiver all the time, but like they put a ton of resources in that position in Reggie Brown, in Macklin, in Sean Jackson, in T.O., right? Like, it's not like they didn't have talent at that position. And that's not to mention the tight ends with L.J. Smith, with Chad Lewis, right? With Zach Ertz for a minute. Brent Selleck, Bryant Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy. His offensive line wasn't too shabby, and we'll get into that. Like, let's not act like McNabb didn't have the star-studded cast that Hurts has, because he did. Like, maybe not as good at receiver with the top two, but like he still had a ton of studs around him and ultimately choked in the biggest game of his life. And maybe this is being too harsh on McNabb, and I'm sorry for our McNabb friends out there, but like to me, it's hands down Hurts, and I think it's because he got us over that hump.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. To me, like, I think they tried at receiver with McNabb. I think they failed, and they didn't put the resources they should have. I disagree with you in terms of where they put the resources. They tried, but they failed pretty immensely when you look at the high draft picks they made, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it's Jalen. Absolutely. Now, when we look at the running back position, again, that's another tough position here when you're only picking out one. And when you look at Brian Westbrook and you look at, LaShawn McCoy, of course, Saquon is the recency bias pick there. You have the guys from the 17 team, but no one really played long enough. Like, to me, it's like Saquon had a great one season, but you can't really put him on a quarter century team when he only had 1 year with the team. That's really tough. I know he went over 2,000 yards, but like, for me, when you look at their career with the Eagles, like Westbrook, the talent wise was great. It just kind of stunk towards the end when the injuries, and of course, beginning of his career, the three-headed monster with Deuce, and you could throw Deuce in there too. He was there for a couple of years in the beginning of the 2000s there, but to me, I think you got to put LaShawn.
I would agree.
I believe he's the Eagles' all-time leading rusher. So for me, and he was so done for now. But I think LaShawn McCoy's the pick on that one.
I would agree. I think, dude, Saquon had just such an incredible season, and if this were like his third or fourth season, right, with the team,
that's a different story.
Or if he had been drafted with us, it would be a different story, and I think it would be hands down him, even if he had a subpar career prior to this year. But LaShawn McCoy, again, recency bias aside, like, he had some pretty iconic moments as well. With the Snow Bowl back in 2013 against the Lions, like one of the most ridiculous performances I've ever seen in my life. He could catch the ball. He's still the team's leading rusher for now. I will say that I think Westbrook was maybe ahead of his time. Like, I think if Westbrook had been around this time period with like CMC and those guys, I think he would have been the best running back in the NFL if you put him in today's league. So shout out to B West. But I do think you're right. I think you have to go with LaShawn McCoy. So, and can we also talk about, this is a side note, but can we talk about how cool it was? And I think we need to bring this back. But when the stadium would do the Slim Shady song every time he made a big play in the stadium, like, I think we need to bring that stuff back. And we're gonna get to a cornerback later that they did that for as well. But they did some. We need to bring that back. We need to do some cool music and stuff.
That's a cool little wrinkle that I think a lot of fans would enjoy to have back. Now, I want to go over this because I did actually make a quarter century team for both offense and defense. Ooh. So I want to say what my thoughts are, and then you can kind of go off of it. We'll start with the offense. Yeah. So I had Jalen Hurts, LaShawn McCoy, who we wind up, and then of course the fullback. I had Leonard Weaver, which
there's no other choice.
Talked about that. My receivers, I had AJ Brown, Deshaun Jackson, and I have Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
So it's tough because I didn't put T.O. there. I know he only played a year and a half. Right. I know he's one of the best receivers in NFL history. But again, to me, that's the longevity effect, I think, does play a factor. I have to, to me, be like, I know AJ and Smitty haven't been there super long, but when you look at the collective group of receivers, honestly, there really is. Like, Macklin had a good Eagles career, but I feel AJ and Smitty kind of trump him in terms of talent level and what they've done on the field. Deshaun's just on another level.
I mean, he's one of the best deep threats in NFL history. And exactly. One of the things I think you have to keep in context in this conversation when you're talking all century is like the iconic moments that we remember. And like the miracle of the Meadowlands too was like one of the most ridiculous plays in NFL history, let alone Eagles history. So I agree. I think as much as I love T.O. and as much as he was like that 2004 season when he came in was just absolutely electric. And for anybody who didn't experience it, it was A.J. Brown times 10. It was just, he was unstoppable. He was amazing. Played the Super Bowl on a broken leg, 122 yards. Unfortunately, we came up short, but that season was incredible. It's a shame the way it went down. But I agree. The longevity, you have to factor that in there. And Djax, I think, is the third receiver.
So the tight end position, I have Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
And then the offensive line, I went with.
Can we do an honorable mention for tight ends? Because like growing up, that was my position.
Chad Lewis.
Brent Selleck and Chad Lewis. I think Chad Lewis gets kind of forgotten in this fan base, like how freaking good he was.
He was a 2-time Pro Bowler too.
Yeah.
And 2002, in 2000.
That dude looked like he was 50 years old and was just cooking out there. And his hands were incredible. That catch he had in the Falcons game championship,
tippy toe where
it wound up costing him his career with a Liz Frank. But like, what a freaking warrior that dude was! Shout out to Lewis if he's out there. If for whatever reason Chad Lewis catches this, man, shout out to you. I had your jersey. You were the man, and that's why I love number 89. And I think it should come back to the tight ends.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah.
My offensive line, I have Jason Peters, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson. It's pretty crazy because it's all within the last, number of years here. But I know you have Trey and John Runyon, but when you look at the tackles, Jason Peters and Lane Johnson are Hall of Famers.
They're first ballot Hall of Famers.
It's so hard to not put those on the list. Jason Kelsey, enough said.
We've had some amazing. We've been spoiled in the last quarter century. Like when you think about it, how good our offensive line was. Like I could rattle off. Like let's see. We got Evan Mathis.
Yeah.
Right. We got John. Was it Winburn? What was his name?
Wellborn. John Wellborn.
John Wellborn. I'm a big fan. You had Mayberry in there at guard. You had Hank Fraley at center.
Jamal Jackson.
Right, Jamal Jackson. I mean, we've had some tremendous offense. We've also had like the Jamon Browns in there too, yeah. But like we've had some Stacey Andrews for a couple years, or Sean Andrews. I mean, Sean Andrews
was so good. It's just the injuries and then all this just kind of
the mental stuff. I think if he were in today's NFL, I think he would have been in a better spot, with the awareness that Brandon Brooks brought. But I think I agree with your offensive line. But like, I do want to shout out the longevity that we've had, or the consistency that we've had in the offensive line for the last 25 years or so. Yeah.
Now, looking at that list, would you switch any of those guys, or you think those are kind of the quarter century guys?
No, I think that's it. You could argue maybe the guard positions, right? And like you can make a good case for Trey, and you can make a good case for Runyon, but like it's hard if it were anyone else other than JP and Lane, like.
And I think too, like
question.
A lot of people get sour on JP because of the final 3 years of his Eagles.
He limped out of there. It was, and we've talked about this before. It's like really sad to see the way he went out, because he just a shell of who he was in the 2010s. But like he was like top 2, and he wasn't 2 for like 15 years, 10 years. Like he was an absolute stud. It's a shame the way he went out and how people remember him, but like first ballot Hall of Famer, and in his prime, there's no doubt he was the best left tackle that ever played here. Mailata might eventually catch up. I mean, that story in itself is absolutely nuts.
That's right. You just also have Jordan Mailata there. The luck they've had at left tackle the last quarter century has been insane.
Like I said, the offensive line play in the last 25 years. Like if you at home like go through it and just make your own team and look at it, it's impressive the talent they've had on that offensive line. Outside of maybe like one or two guard spots in like a 15-year span.
So now we shift over to the defensive side of the ball, which I think is going to be a little bit tougher. But the way that I have it broken down here is, what we talked about.
4-3.
Yeah, so 4-3,
yeah.
And then I have 3 corners and 2 safeties. So it's that, like how we add the fullback on the offensive side.
Yeah.
So I've got Trent Cole, Jalen Carter, which I think I could change that. I have another different one in mind there because it kind of goes against what we were talking about earlier. Now, this is a list I made before, and that's why we're talking it out.
Yeah.
Fletcher Cox, BG, and then my linebacker. Now, when I talk about linebackers, they're not edge rushers, like edges or anything like that. That doesn't count. The defensive end positions are for the pass rushers, essentially.
Yeah, agreed.
So they're like, oh, well, this guy was a linebacker / like, no, that doesn't count.
And if it makes you feel any better for anyone arguing that, Trent Cole and BG both played edge. They both played outside linebacker. So
correct. Very correct. Jeremiah Trotter, senior, is easy there. I've got D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, good pull.
Because, for me, like D'Amico had a solid, handful of seasons with them, and unfortunately the Achilles injury kind of ended things there. But that addition to linebacker position when they traded for him was absolutely.
He was the Darius Slay of linebacker.
Yeah, that's a good analogy there.
We had such a shitty run of linebackers with like the Jamar Chaneys and Casey Matthews and
Brian Roll,
Mark Aether and Moise Foku and Keith Adams and Ernie Sims. Like we were just rotating.
Casey Matthews, you said that right? Yeah,
I did, unfortunately. Tahani Jones was decent for us. We had Takeo Spikes for a cup of coffee.
You know what? One thing I always say about that, I wanted to see
him and Trotter on the same team
together.
Yes,
so badly.
Thank you.
So badly, and it didn't come to fruition.
We missed it by like a week. Yeah, that was heartbreaking when we got rid of Trotter. That was devastating to me. I mean, my dog's named after Trotter. And I want to hear your third linebacker.
So I got one for you here.
I'm not going to like this. Is it Carlos Emmons?
It is Carlos Emmons.
All right. You're back.
So the way that I like the linebacker position's tough when you look at the Eagles' last 25 years. And I think, too, is what you've just kind of mentioned was all the guys they threw in there. Even like the Nate Garys and the Alex Singletons. And you have all these guys. And like Nigel Bradham.
We don't say Nate Gary's name. It's 47 only. We don't mention his name. You're not going to grab Matt McCoy or any of those. Sorry, keep going.
Like Nigel Bradham had a good couple years there, but I think Sean Barber they had here, which I thought was a great free agency addition when they got. I believe they signed him after they got rid of Emmons.
Did we bring him back twice? Wasn't he on
we
the team?
did. I think it was like 06 and 09 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think Carlos Emmons, and we'll talk a little more about that because we'll go each position group by position group and see what you got.
Yeah.
My corners are.
Well, hold on. I think I agree with the linebackers. Like I don't have any notes. But I do want to say that I thought for sure, in my heart of hearts, that Stu Bradley was going to bring stability and prowess to that position for the Philadelphia Eagles for 10 plus years. And I'm still heartbroken about Stu Bradley.
Yeah. Listen,
anyway.
It's an unfortunate in that 2010 opening game, there was a lot of injuries there that became
Weaver, Cobb, and Stu Bradley.
They had those big time injuries. The corners that I have Troy Vincent, Asante Samuel, and Darius Slay.
Oh, see, this is where I thought it would be hard. Troy Vincent, I think, is definitely on there. And where I struggle is I think Nnamdi Asomugha. No, I'm just kidding. I think Slay has to be on there just because of the stability that he brought to the position, similar to what Simba did to the linebacking core. So I think you have to do that, especially since he just went out a Super Bowl champion. Asante is such a good pool. Lido also gets into my brain there. Like
It's
Lido,
tough. Like
Lido
had some
had some amazing play. This is tough because Slay's a champion, but like Lido and Asante were just turnover machines. And Lido had some like Lido when they played the Lido in the stadium, like so cool. Shit. Slay really throws a wrench in there because I think it's Troy Vincent is a no-brainer, and I think Asante has to be in there.
Even another guy who was solid,
Sheldon.
Bobby Taylor.
Who?
Bobby Taylor.
Yeah, and Sheldon Brown. That's another position where like we had what, like 10 years of solid cornerback play between.
We had a couple years of we had a couple years of Al Harris early in there, and he got traded to Green Bay.
And Alan Rossum and who else? What's the dude's name? He was a nickel corner for us, 22.
Brandon Boykin.
Who?
You talking about Brandon Boykin, like later or in the early?
Brandon Boykin.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be the truth too. Yeah, dude, we've had some really good cornerback play until like that little stretch with the Michael Chiquette and Maxwell fiasco. I think you have to go with Slay, but honorable mention to Lido.
You can give honorable mention, but like for me,
Sheldon Brown was also in there. Like he was so solid.
Slay being a champion and what he's done the last couple of years, 2 Super Bowls, champion.
But at the same time, like if I'm building a team, I'm not sure I would take Slay over prime Bobby Taylor or Lido Shepherd. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't know. So I think just Slay.
That's really tough. That's really tough combo.
That's one of the tough ones. I don't know. To me, it's that's tough.
Let's give it to Slay because he's got a ring. But like, I'm just gonna say for the record, like, I'm not 100% on that because I think Bobby Taylor and Lido deserve some love, and maybe we'll revisit this. But we'll go with Slay.
To me, the safeties are easy. I've got Dawkins and Malcolm.
Yeah,
I really don't think there's, they've had good safeties in terms of Michael Lewis and Quentin Michael and stuff like that. But when you look at guys, those are the 2 guys. Those are your 2 safeties. Like I know GJ went to 2 Super Bowls with the team, but he was here 2 years. That's it. Like I'm not. And Reed, I think, is just too young yet. Like to me, those are the guys. Those are.
Yeah.
That's
another position we've had some pretty good dudes. The Quentin Michaels of the world, the Michael Lewis, Tim Houck.
Yeah. Listen, like
Chris Marigo. Yeah. Keep going. Nacho Harris.
Sean Jones. Sean Considine, don't forget him. When you look at the defensive ends, though, like Hugh Douglas off, like I had to keep him off the list. Like it's hard. Like who do you choose? Like Trent Cole. Had 89 sacks.
Yeah,
80 something. Like he had.
Yeah,
he's so good. And then you look BG. BG's a generational Eagle. Like, it's hard to just leave him off, and that's tough. And Fletch is an easy pick because he was an all-decade defensive tackle with Aaron Donald. Like, that's the list. Jalen Carter may be a little early, but I think who would you put at that next defensive tackle? Or do you think Jalen Carter deserves to have that? He's only been on the team 2 years, though.
I mean, the only other guys I could think of would be like Corey Simon.
But Corey Simon played from 2000 to 2004. He played 5 seasons.
Right.
And one of the reasons he was hurt. Like Mike Patterson was brought up. Like you could say maybe Hollis Thomas, but he was more just a run stuffer. But like he was a really good player, but he played.
Andy Harmon?
Andy Harmon didn't play in the 2000s. That's the tough part.
Oh, was he pre-2000s?
Yeah. 91 and 97.
Oh, yeah. I just always picture him in the Midnight Greens.
But, like, you look at the other defensive tackles, like, there have been a lot of one-year guys, like the Haloti Nadas, the Malik Jacksons, the Hargrave, like, Mike Patterson and Bunkley, and you had Darwin Walker, Sam Rayburn, like Paul Grassmanis, like you had.
Oh man, wow.
Like, I guess keep Jalen Carter just because the talent and what he's shown you already. It's been 2 years. Like it's not just 1 year. Off of 1 year, it's off of 2 years. Super Bowl champion.
Yeah. Well, I think he's proven that he's gonna be like he already demands respect. He's already taken double teams. He was taking double teams his rookie year.
There just isn't anyone else to put, and that's the thing. Like, there's no other guy that's played 6-7 years and had like a Pro Bowl or two, and it really hasn't been that. Like,
it has had the impact that he has, even if they did play 6 or 7 years. I mean, that sack against the Rams saved our season.
Yeah, like for me, like the only other option, and it would be like Hollis Thomas, and friend of the show, Hollis Thomas.
No offense.
Like my thing with that is like he played 96 to 99, and then 2000 to I think he played until 2005 with them.
How about
he was injured? Trevor Laws.
I mean, you could say Bo Allen. Bo Allen went out a Super Bowl champion, was a key part of that team.
But it's tough because you look at the numbers too. Like that all comes into play as well, and it's just like I think the thing is the impact. Like Hollis Thomas to me was like a Jordan Davis type, that run stuffing defensive tackle. Like he's not going to have the numbers for you, but his impact is going to be there, but not on the stat sheet. It's going to be visually you seeing that. Like, for me, that's kind of where it falls there. Like it's a tough thing. Like, it's a tough position because they haven't had tons of dominant players interior wise. They've had solid players, role players, but they've never had like dominant guys.
No, I agree. And if you wanted to get like real cute with it, you could even move BG to the inside and pull in another edge rusher. But
edge.
Yeah, but I think that's fair. I think Jalen Carter has,
because what I could essentially do is I could just put DL, D line. So I could go. If you think that would be the smart thing to do just all defensive linemen, we could go Trent Cole, BG, Fletch, and Hugh.
I think Carter has earned his spot, to be honest with you. Maybe it's premature. Maybe I'll get shit for it, but like the dude's a stud, man.
Yeah. And I'm fine by that. But
to your point, I don't think anybody has made a bigger impact, even if they had, more of a tenure with the Eagles. I think it's fair to put Jalen Carter on there with the amount of impact he's had in 3-4 years.
Yeah. Now, the final one, which I didn't do, I did the two. Like, I have a long snapper and a returner. I don't have a kicker and punter. Those are ones to kind of discuss a little bit.
I got this. Yeah.
Long snapper. I know Lovato won 2 rings. I get that. But for me,
Storm is you could argue Mike Bartram.
Yeah.
If you really want to go old school, but I think Durham Boss was like the peak of long snapping with us. Like I think he was the first one where people actually knew who the long snapper was. He's got a obviously a great story. But he was Mr. Consistency, dude, and he did it for what 10? He did it for 10 plus years with us.
Yeah, he did. He was in one of the top Eagles in games played because he played so long with them.
How many games did he play?
As you look that up, my returner, I have Deshaun Jackson. Like, I know they've had some good returners, but as you had stated earlier in the show here, the Miracle at the Meadowlands too. Like, I know he wasn't a kick returner, he was a punt returner, but returner in general.
Who's that?
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
So it's hard to who else are you putting there?
All right. So here's the argument there. So Darren Boss played for 162 regular season games between 2006 and 2016. That's ridiculous. So here's where you can get cute with the roster, right? And this is where my like roster building brain goes. You already have Djax as your third receiver, right? Like if you're looking at this from like a fantasy perspective, you could sneak a Brian Westbrook in there or a Darren Sproles. Both tremendous kick and
you know what? I think I'm going to go Sproles. I like that.
I wouldn't hate that. Yeah. I think Sproles would be my returner there.
I'm going with that. I like that. I'm going to go that way. That's a good idea. Now, when the kicker and the punter, do you go Jake Elliott over Akers?
You have to. 2 Super Bowls.
I was thinking that, but
he's never missed a field goal in a Super Bowl. Knock on wood.
It's tough because Akers was so good for so long, but they weren't able to get over the hump. So I think it would change if he had at least one Super Bowl. I think you could really make the argument of, hey, come on. But Elliott's on his way to being –
who has a better overall percentage? Do you know?
I don't.
Like accuracy. I would assume Jake has a better overall career. I'm interested to hear your punter take.
No, not Sean Landeta.
No, it wouldn't be Sean Landeta.
So Akers' career percentage. Now this is regular season. So his field goal percentage with the Eagles was 82.4, and then in the playoffs, his field goal percentage with the Eagles was 81.6. He had some struggles in some of those games we remember.
Okay.
Now Jake Elliott, as a Philadelphia Eagle, has a field goal percentage of 84.8 in the regular season and 96.3 in the postseason.
There, that's your answer right there, Jake the Make.
So when I look at
Colt, like I know we were murdering him throughout the year. Jake Elliott, is this his last year? Is he done? Is there something wrong? Did we put too much trust in him?
I'm wondering if it was a Lovato stuff. Potentially Lovato, maybe
I think it's a big reason.
A little bit in terms of his placements and stuff like that. We'll see this year.
So 2 things that I've heard about that. So one is, for those of you who don't know the intricacies of like the operation, what they call it, right? The snap to the holder to the kicker. There is an expected amount of rotations that long snapper is supposed to get on a field goal specifically to that holder, right? And I think the general requirement for the Eagles is 2.5 rotations. That way they get it at the laces, they put it down, and it's kicked. Yeah. There were rumblings that Lovato was not hitting his rotations. He was either getting that 2 rotations, that 3 rotations, maybe more. And then that was throwing off the timing of the kicks, which led to a lot of Jake. That's one thing I've heard. The other thing I've heard is that Jake was hurt. Now, I haven't seen any formal report come out about that, but multiple people mentioned it post-Super Bowl that Jake Elliott was dealing with injuries throughout the year. So I just keep that in mind for anybody. I don't know if we've ever talked about that. and I would love to do a deep dive on the operation of a kick, like the snapper holder kick. There's a tremendous video online that the Eagles released about it and everything that goes into it, including the wind conditions, the weather conditions, the rotations that they need to get on the ball, things like that. So if you have free time and feel like checking it out, YouTube it, Google it. But I go Jake the Mick. Long answer short. Sorry to go off on a tangent, but I'm a dork for that stuff. I love long snapping and all that.
That's fine. So when we look at the punting position,
yeah,
to me, I think this is one of the toughest ones because it isn't like they've had a guy that's been the standard or a guy that was there. Like, I don't think you could put Braden Mann. He's only been there a couple of years. We're not going to put essentially any of the recent punters. The one guy I'm thinking of, I'm not thinking about Sean Landetta or Savraka or anything like that. I'm thinking Donnie Jones.
Dude, I was just going to say, it's gotta be Donnie Longball. Yeah, hands down, man. Hands down. Cool as a cucumber. Went out there with his sweatpants. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Had to take off his sweatpants and was like struggling to get him off in the middle of the field. Hilarious. Yeah, dude, Donnie Longball. He was the man.
So I think that to me that's perfect. And listen, he played 5 years with the Eagles. It wasn't like he only played 2 years. He played 5 seasons with Philly. So, for me, I'm totally fine with that. I just don't think anyone else really come close. Like, I know Sean Landetta was a big time veteran punter, everything. That's fine. Jeff Fugels, it was in the 90s.
Humpy Tutors. By the way, I just saw a clip of Jeremiah Trotter. Do you remember when they brought him back from Washington, and Jim Johnson made him play special teams,
and he knocked out Jeff
Fugels. Yeah, which that's the every time I hear Jeff Fugels, that's the first thing I think of.
Oh, by the way,
sideline going, like
before we head off, we forgot a linebacker to mention. Good old Mark Simino.
We didn't forget him. No,
we just didn't want to mention him.
We're good. We're good.
Nate Wayne. There's
been
plenty.
Listen, Mark Simino he filled in admirably considering he was a little guy. But I think we nailed it with the 3.
Yeah. Now, trivia question before we leave here, and I'm going to leave you with this. 2005 Monday Night Football, Jeremiah Trotter gets thrown out. Who's the linebacker that starts in his
2005?
Unfortunately, I believe he did pass away, so he is no longer with us. So
it's not Matt McCoy, is it?
It is not Matt McCoy.
I'm trying to think of who the middle linebacker would be. Hold on, 2005. That's the year before I was on the team, or with the team. Trying to think of who that would be. You had Dahani at that point. You had, I believe Matt McCoy was a rookie that year. Wasn't Ernie. Ernie was after that. Not Akeem Jordan. No. He was later. Am I going to kick myself for this?
No, you're not, because it's Mike Labinjo.
Never in a million years would have guessed that.
Second year out of Michigan State, he was the linebacker that replaced Trot. Also,
this is the first time I'm hearing that name in my life.
I believe we need to add this as a position as well, a special teams ace.
Hell yeah. All right.
Now,
I got
I'm going to go with my guy and the official ambassador, the honorary ambassador of AAT Birds, and that would be Ike Reese.
Oh, good one. That is a good one. Shit, that's a good one. He had some really good blocks, especially on that Miracle at the Meadowlands 2.
Yes,
I believe it was.
It's a nice plays.
Yeah. By the way, if Ike's listening to this, that was 100% a hold or a block in the back. Pick your poison. That was,
But it wasn't.
He was probably shocked as hell that there was no flag. I would go with either Chris Maragos or Colt Anderson. Colt Anderson was such a beast on special teams.
That's it. Jason Short.
Justin
Brian
Short. Or no, it was Jason Short. He was insane.
Brian Bremen.
I forgot about Bremen.
Leroy Reynolds.
If I Keith Adams.
Keith Adams.
Keith Adams, the bullet, man. I've mentioned him way too much over the last couple of weeks, but like he was such a stud.
You know it's gonna be hard to move me off of Ike Reese.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't argue too hard, to be honest with you.
Especially
Maragos
he made
and Colt Anderson were both captains, and they were just tiny little white dudes that played nothing but special. What's that?
Tim Houck, wasn't he a special teamer?
He was.
That wasn't in 2000. That was in the 90s, so it doesn't count.
I'd give you Ike. I like Ike.
All right. So that wraps it up. That wraps up our AATBirds Eagles quarter century team. Fun little project that we had going. Now, we're going to have a lot of fun stuff upcoming this summer. We do have a giveaway that we're going to announce later this week, so make sure you're tuned in for that. Make sure you follow the steps there to be able to win the giveaway. I'm not going to mention what it is yet. You will see that if you are following. Make sure at the bottom there you see all of our, the X, Instagram, YouTube. There'll be also a link tree posted as well. You can see everything that we are on that you can subscribe and or like and or follow. So make sure that you're tuned in there. We have some potential former Eagles guests later this summer that we're trying to work out some details on. So make sure that you're following so you can see those episodes, because I'm sure they're going to be some fun chatting, fun talking with said former Eagles that we will mention once we get some more details on that. But, with that,
we also might have some opportunities to meet some of you live coming up.
Yeah.
We're in the midst of talking about some of that stuff, but
there's a lot of goings on that we will we'll mention. We'll post everything once we get details finalized. But with that, as we always say it, we always end it with 2 words, and that is
Go Birds!
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.